This is episode 3 of the Rjkworldtour podcast. Alright guys, first things first, thank you so much for the support that you've given me over episodes 1 and 2. It really is appreciated. I was overwhelmed by the response that I did get, to be honest, and it was a lot bigger than I expected. Really is appreciated, like I said. Thank you again, and keep the feedback coming. A quick apology though, was that I know a few of you had difficulty hearing Dan in episode 2. I do apologise for this. It's something that I did recognise after recording that episode. I've since corrected that mistake, and that should not occur again. But apologies for those people who did have a little bit of difficulty hearing that. Also, I only went and spelled Dan's website wrong in the podcast description, like an absolute clown. Dan, really sorry mate. For everyone else, Dan's actual website address is danielshipley.co.uk. That's DANIELSHIPLEY.co.uk. Please check it out, and check out my favourite track, Forgotten Son. Alright guys, one more thing before we get on with this episode. I'm trying to get a good idea about how many people are listening to this podcast, and without boring you with the technical difficulties, I've got it set up now so that I should have a better idea after this episode. But could you please help me out and do me the favour of both subscribing and downloading this podcast? That really would be appreciated. One thing that I do know is that I've got listeners in 4 different countries, if you count England and Scotland as separate countries, and along with those two, there's people in Australia listening, and Colombia, would you believe it or not. Alright, please enjoy this episode with my brother from a different mother, Phil Taffley, or Tappers to some of you. Mwah! I have this problem where I have an opinion on a place, and a lot of it's based on the experiences I have, and I'm easily influenced. Whereas Phil can look at a place just based on its merits, and he's got a real ability to strip down a place and evaluate the good points and bad points about that particular place, rather than be influenced by the people and the experience like me. Phil is a good friend of mine and has done a lot of travelling. The only problem is he's got a terrible memory, that of a 98-year-old man. So I'm not sure if he actually remembers any of the travelling he's done, but we'll find out. So, Phil, can you tell me a little bit about your travelling experiences?
Listeners, I certainly can, and what Rich said there is probably very accurate. I do have an extremely bad memory, so I have taken thousands of photos, probably somewhere in the region of 20,000 photos on my journeys, just so as I can look back and go, yeah, I've been there, I've done that, because otherwise I'd forget.
Phil is, when he takes photos, it's unbelievable. He takes photos like a Japanese person. It's not a racist slur, by the way, but takes photos of everything. And if you get a good idea photo, you think, I've got an idea, we'll take a photo. Phil go, I'm going to do that.
You've got to get all the angles, you've got to cover everything.
You take 10 of the same ones that I take.
Take 10 of them, sift through them, delete the worst 7, keep the best 3. That's sort of my... It's usually the other way around, I delete 3 and keep 7, but...
You keep 7? I thought you had like a 10% keep rate or something like that.
I did work it out once, but I can't remember it now. I think it was 60 odd %, but I can't remember. As we said at the beginning, my memory's shocking. Yeah, so, sorry, to get off the subject, what did you ask me to begin with?
Right. The original question was, where have you travelled to? So, you can talk about any place you've done an extended travel to, really. Yeah,
okay, so as a kid, my mum and dad would take me on holiday, so we went to various places in Europe, such as Spain and Cyprus and Turkey and a few places like that. And then as I got older, I decided to venture out more, so I think when I was 19, we went on a interrailing trip across Europe. So we hit 7 or 8 countries there in the space of, I think it was 30 days or something daft. It was a pretty fly through Europe sort of trip, which was excellent. And then venturing out more and more, I'd always wanted to go to Australia. So when I was at university, I had the chance to do a semester abroad. And the choices were either a year in California or 6 months in Melbourne. And Melbourne and Australia to me were like, I've got to go there, and it seemed such an awesome place. And it really was. Fell in love with Melbourne and fell in love with travelling, really, because when I was there I travelled across a lot of Australia. I did the West Coast, the East Coast, I did Tasmania. So I had a variety of experiences in Australia, and that sort of set me up for life. And I was like, right, I want to travel. So then me and Rich, when we were in our early 20s, I can't remember, it was a while ago.
Point proved.
Well, it was more Rich really. He had this idea to go to Asia and see Southeast Asia. So we went back there, we went there, and we started off in Singapore and then worked our way up through the standard Thailand, Cambodia, with Vietnam. Me and Rich split off at one point. I went up to China. We met back together again in Australia. So we've done all that, and then finally South America was always a dream. So I recently went to South America and spent about 6 months in South America doing a good portion of the continent. I think 7, maybe 8 different countries. So yeah, I've done quite a lot.
It's a good effort. Just to poke fun at your memory just one more time, bit pedantic, we did go through Malaysia, which is between Singapore and Thailand. But
9 days in Malaysia. So I do remember things. But
to be fair, and it's not to take fun at Malaysia, or just our experience was not too memorable really.
No.
I think I've heard people say good things about it.
It was okay. We did 3 days in, I want to say Penang.
That was at the end.
That was the end. Where was it for the first place we went
Malacca.
to? Malacca. 3 days in Malacca, which was very different to anything we'd really seen before. We were in a hostel right next to this mosque. So we would get woken up at 5 in the morning with lots of praying and things like that. But Malacca was nice. It was supposed to be a World Heritage Site. I can't say there was anything that special there, but it was okay.
Well, one of the most memorable parts of that place was the guy who ran the hostel. Do you remember him?
Bob Allen.
Absolute character. Just had a way with words, and he was so unique, and he just really got caught up in the world because he was about 55 or something, wasn't he?
In mid-50s. He hadn't been back to the UK in 25 years. So he was if you're ever in Malaysia and in Malacca, but Jalan was the name of the hostel.
Can't imagine he's still there. Can he be there?
Maybe not.
Do you know what? I don't know if my mind was playing tricks on me, but when I flew to New Zealand from Sydney, I could have sworn I saw him on my flight. And I was doing that thing when you think you recognise someone but you're not sure, so you just stare at them like a stalker, and you try and weigh it up and see if they catch their eye. I was doing that, and I thought, hang on a minute, I'm going to get arrested here if I keep looking at him in this way.
If it was a girl, you'd have been thrown in prison already.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, that's probably the most memorable thing about Malacca. Kuala Lumpur it's quite an experience.
I'd briefly been there before, so I knew there was a place called the Batu Caves in Kuala Lumpur, which is really cool. There's about 220 steps you have to climb up to these caves, and there's some what do you call it, like shrines and Hindu religious artifacts up there. You got some monkeys, little tiny monkeys scurrying about, and you can get some good photos of monkeys.
Get quite close.
But that's probably one of the best things in Kuala Lumpur. It's just a city, really.
Do you remember outside I forget what it's called, the Twin Towers building?
Petrona Towers.
Yeah. We decided to make that photo where you were standing between the two towers and you had your palms facing outwards, doing this in front of Phil. You
can't see it, but he's got his hands out there, so I'm pushing the towers apart.
I was doing it for my own benefits, and your palms were facing out, and I was lying on the floor to sort of get an angle pointing up towards you, and you trying to manually Photoshop it so it looked like you were pushing the towers apart.
Yeah.
And got a picture, I'm like, yeah, that's really good. And then some guy came up to me, and was like, oh, can you do one for me? So I can get back on the floor, lying on the floor, taking this picture, and then get up, hand him a camera. I'm like, where's Phil? And then look around, and you're lying on the floor, doing the same for someone else.
Yeah, we'd started a little mini photo wave, if you like. Everyone was copying our ideas for the photos.
And then when we walked away from the tower, about 50 metres turned back, and there was just still loads of people doing that.
Yeah.
I was quite proud of that.
So Malaysia was alright. We didn't really explore the east side of Malaysia.
Yeah.
We met people travelling who had said the east side's beautiful. There's a lot of rainforest to go around, and you can go and explore that, but we never made it over that way, but it was okay.
I think one of the, say, problems, in depending which way you look at it, is that a lot of people go to particularly Thailand and Southeast Asia just to have a big party and have a time like that, and Malaysia's not that sort of place with the alcohol tax.
Yes.
And especially it was the start of our trip, so we were well up for that sort of time. Because it's not that sort of place, you couldn't really do that. The flip side of that is if you went through Cambodia and Thailand and Vietnam and you just fed off of drinking, it'd be actually a pretty good place, because you could go through there and there wouldn't be that culture and there wouldn't be that pressure, and it'd be a bit more expensive than before, so you'd be actually more tempted to enjoy what the country's got to offer rather than just getting sloshed.
Yeah, that's a good point, because a lot of like Thailand and Cambodia, there's a lot of uni people that are doing a gap year and older mid-20s, and a lot of their sort of hedonistic approach is just to go on the piss every night, have a party, which is fantastic and great if you want to do that sort of thing, and I love doing that. But then after 3-4 weeks of it, you need a break, and I suppose Malaysia is a nice place you could go to get that break.
Yeah, we did it the wrong way round, clearly.
Well, most people fly into Bangkok
and out of Singapore, though. Yes. I know some of my friends did that.
Yeah, because Singapore is a hotbed to Australia. And you find a lot of people go to Southeast Asia and then move on to Australia.
Yeah. So if you did actually get that flight, that might work quite well, because often people just will book a flight down from Bangkok to Singapore because it's like 50 quid or something like that. But if you actually had a bit of time, you wanted to detox, that might not be the worst idea. What would you say your favourite place you've ever been to?
See, I get asked this a lot.
Top 3 then. If you can't think of one.
It's not that I can't think of one. It's that everywhere is slightly different in terms of what it offers. So, for me, the place where I want to live, the city that I love, has to be Melbourne. Yeah. And there's just something about Melbourne. It's got this great little vibe. It's not too big a city. It's not too small. There's a lovely river that you can go and chill on sunny days. There's great architecture like the library there. And you've got the Southern Hemisphere's biggest casino. You've got the biggest shopping centre in the Southern Hemisphere. You've got the tallest building in the Southern Hemisphere there. You've got all these little laneways with cool bars and shops and stuff. There's so much to do in Melbourne. And it's close to the sea as well. It's close to the beach, 20 minutes away. You're in St Kilda on the tram. There's great public transport around. And Melbourne is like, I really want to live there. It's amazing. But so in terms of the city and livable, my favourite place is Melbourne. In terms of an idealistic island, a getaway place, a place where you just go and relax and do nothing. I went to a place in Cambodia called Koh Rong, also known as Monkey Island, and that's just off the coast of Sihanoukville. I hope I pronounced that right, because I'm shocking with names. So that's a 2-hour ferry ride from Sihanoukville, and we got there and it was the most tranquil, calm, relaxing place ever. It was like, at the time, it was back in 2012, and I was told that only being tourists aren't going there since about 2010, 2011. And so before that, there was just about 100 people living on this island, and some tourists had come and set up a few hostels. Well, hostels is not really the right word, sort of bungalows, if you like, little bungalows that you can sleep in, and it's right on the beach. So when we went, very few people there, maybe 100, 200 tourists maximum. You'd get up in the morning about 10, 11 o'clock. First thing I'd do is I'd go and have a shower in the sea. It was a 5-metre walk to the sea.
Oh, you have a shower in the sea?
Well, just take your freaking thing and lather up a little bit. Oh, it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Just because it's so hot. And there was no electricity either on this island. They've got this generator, this shitty little generator, that would be going for about 5 or 6 hours. It'd be cranking up all day, and then you get 5 or 6 hours use out of it in the evening. So between about 6 to about 12, you got electricity, but other than that, you had nothing.
Did you take shower gel with you into the sea?
I did once, only once to be fair. But we did have a little shower in the bungalow, but it was cold water, and I hate cold showers.
So I'd cold everything.
I'm really, really against the cold. So I'd rather go in the sea, which was actually quite a warm sea, and shower in there. And then you just spend the day just relaxing, chatting to people on the beach. We'd go for a swim. You could go snorkeling. There was a few bars you could have a drink in, and it was amazing. And I was there for 10 days all in all because it was just so calming and relaxing. I didn't want to leave, but I had to leave because my visa was running out. So I went back on the ferry to Sihanoukville, and my head was spinning. Seriously, properly spinning. I couldn't cope with the smells, the noise, the hassle, the people, just going from somewhere that's so calm.
Yeah.
And Sihanoukville's not even a big city. It's a little town at the most, but you've just got people constantly hassling you, trying to get you into tuk-tuks and sell you this, that and the other, and give flyers away from bars.
What idiot would do that?
Indeed, some idiots go over there for 3 weeks. They don't work. They work, but they don't earn anything, and give away flyers on the streets to get you into the bars.
Can't imagine why you do that.
Well, my good friend Richard here, who's presenting this podcast, did do that, didn't he?
Yeah, I'd heard about it. Someone was telling me about it on a bus. A guy I met on a bus actually was on his way there and told me about it. And I thought, that's something I could maybe do. And I went down to Sihanoukville a week after meeting this guy, and then started to just work in a bar. And I say working, it was just for free food, accommodation and drink, and basically just making sure everyone was alright at night, and just having, say, a few beers, a lot of beers. Then you give out flyers a couple of times in the day, and apart from that, it's not a lot. I meant to do it for about a week, and then go on to Koh Rong, because I'd heard the same stories that you'd heard, and I just got stuck in Sihanoukville, just an easy life of just getting up.
It's very easy to get stuck in places like that, isn't it?
Just the whole thing of just getting up. You get up about 1 o'clock, go to the bar, and everyone will be there, and you talk about the night before, and you go and give out some flyers together, and you just chill, go to an internet cafe or stay on the beach, and then give out some more flyers, eat together, and then have a big old party and repeat. The group who was working at the bar had all started within a few days of each other, so it was a really good group of people, and everyone got on really well, and no one wanted to leave. So that was why I stayed for so long, really. If it wasn't such a good group, I would have probably made my way to Koh Rong.
Well, that's the thing. Sometimes it's not about the place you're in, it's about the people that you're there with, and when you've got a good group, you can be in not a particularly great place, but you can always find things to do, and having a group of friends around you is one of the best experiences of travelling. You've never met these people before, you know nothing about them, and within 2 days you're best mates.
Yeah.
So it's a weird experience, but I can completely see why you did that.
Yeah.
But I sort of went with the thing that I didn't want to work. I wanted to have 6 months where I just was doing what I wanted. I didn't want to have to give out flyers at 3 o'clock in the afternoon if I didn't want to. But yeah, we're each their own. Going back to what you asked me before about the best places I've been, so I've answered what I would say is the best city. I've said probably what's like the best remotest place I've ever been. My sort of favourite natural beauty, if you like, was when I was in Brazil, which was only about a year or so ago now, and we went to the Iguazu Falls. Now the Iguazu Falls is a set of waterfalls. It's about 220 by memory. It's over the 200 mark anyway. Different waterfalls all in one area, and it's all on the pinnacle of Brazil, Argentina and Paraguay. So you can actually go into all three countries and visit the falls
in one day.
You could do it in one day, but it'd be a push.
Okay.
Most people just do Brazil side one day and the Argentinian side the other day, and they miss out the Paraguayan side.
Have you done all three?
No, I only did the Brazil side because time was ticking on and I had a flight to get from Rio. Depending on who you ask, some people say the Brazil side is the best. Some people say the Argentinian side is the best, and I must have asked, let's say 20 people, and I'll probably had about a 10-10 split. It was very, very evenly done, because...
I feel sorry for Paraguay not getting any love.
Yeah, no one really cares about Paraguay. And the weird thing about Paraguay is you can actually enter the country without leaving Brazil. It's I don't fully understand, but you don't need a full visa to go in. You can just literally go there for the day and go back to Brazil. But if you want to cross the Argentinian side, you have to get a separate visa and you have to go through your passport control, and there's apparently a bus that can take you across, but the bus won't wait for you. So you get off the bus, you hand in your passport, and the bus is gone. And then you have to wait for the next bus. So you have to be careful with that in terms of when the last bus leaves, because if you're on that, you'll literally be stuck. But from my experience, the Brazilian side was the best because I only saw the Brazilian side. But you got to see everything, so many bloody waterfalls, and it was crazy. I even did a helicopter ride there. It was about 10 minutes, cost about 70 quid, something like that. But it was the first time I've been in a helicopter, and it was amazing. I loved it. Apparently the Argentinian side's a bit different. You get to see sort of one massive waterfall, but not really the little separate waterfalls, whereas from the Brazil side you see all the separate ones and one big one as well. So in terms of natural beauty, Iguazu Falls is definitely my favourite place that I've been. And I had one other category as well, which was favourite historical town or town with a lot of museums and places like that. And Vienna in Austria. I was only there for maybe a day, 2 days, but that was absolutely stunning. There's so many different places in Vienna to go and see, but I'll be honest, that was back when I was 19, I'm now 27, and I can't remember most of it. But it was awesome. I've got the photos to prove it.
Have you been to Niagara Falls?
I haven't, no.
So it must have been Dan who's done both of them then. Because I've heard that people say that the Iguazu Falls blows Niagara Falls out of the water.
I've heard a lot of people say that as well.
No pun intended.
Blows it out of the water indeed.
I wish I was that intelligent. There's two sides to the Niagara one, isn't there? There's the American side you can see, although I don't think many people do that. I think they stick to the Canadian one.
You did the Canadian one, didn't you?
Yeah, a long time ago. Which is a deceiving place, because there was 5 of us who drove up to Canada and to Montreal before going back, heading towards New Jersey, back where we worked. We stopped at Niagara Falls, and it's just so built up. It's like Disneyland. There's just so many restaurants and casino and all sorts going on.
Yeah, it's a bit weird, that, I suppose. Yeah.
I always expect it to be like a shed next to a waterfall, and then like you'll stay in the shed, and then like you go and see the waterfall, and that's it. But it's very commercialised. But because I was younger, I was kind of fooled by it, and I thought, whoa, there's so much to do here. Can't believe we only got a day. And then the day was pretty much what we needed, to be honest. You go on a boat trip that everyone does. It's called Made in the Mist. You go right up close, take a selfie, or
you can do that in Iguazu as well, but you get covered in water.
So like they make you wear this. They don't make you, but you put on like an all-in-one sort of waterproof bin bag thing.
I bet you look sexy.
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously girls saw me in that and coming up to me all the time. Yeah, they just give it that because you just get sprayed so much.
Yeah.
Similar deal. That's what's going to happen really when you throw in water from so high into colliding off of water. You're going to get wet. And in the afternoon, we went on a boat trip. It was like a speedboat. You go into grade 1, 2, 3 and 4 rapids, or white water.
Yeah.
So it's like, because you go on top of the river rather than at the bottom of the fall, and that's quite cool as well.
You need someone who's done both really to say which one's the best, but most people I've spoken to who have done both have said Iguazu's definitely the best.
Yeah, like I said, I think Dan, who's also recorded a podcast with me, I think he's done them both, and he said it was different league.
Yeah.
It's like comparing Crew Alexandra with Barcelona. Clearly Crew are the best.
Well, I think many people would question that, but yeah.
Alright, what would you say your best experience was? Has been, or top 3 or 5, if you can't think of one in particular?
Experience.
Keep it family friendly.
Of course. I've swore quite a lot in this already, so try and keep that to a minimum. Possibly, I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest walker in the world. I find anything that's a bit of trekking or anything like that is not really up my street. I'd rather sit on a bus and be taken around, or sit in a taxi. Or
hence this afternoon when we went to Tesco, which is half a mile down the road, suggested driving there.
Well, you know. But that being said, when you're with other people, you have to be accommodative to what they want. So I was travelling with a guy called Dave, and he wanted to do a bit of trekking. And that's the whole point of travelling, is you do new experiences. So if I was on my own, I probably wouldn't have done it. But with him, we went on this trek down to the Colca Canyon, it was, in Peru. And that was an amazing experience. It was bloody hard, don't get me wrong. It was really hard. It was 6 kilometres per day for 3 days, so we did 18 kilometres all in all. But it was like up and down and twisting around, and it was some proper hard trekking. But the rewarding experience at the end was nothing like it. And I got arthritis as well, so at the end of one of the days, I could barely walk, I'll be honest with you. I could not get from the bed to the bathroom. I had to get Dave to come and hold me and carry me over to the bathroom, so I was just popping all my painkillers like mad. But I suppose that's part of the experience, isn't it? You know you're going to be in pain, you know it's going to be difficult, and you take it on, and when you've completed that challenge, that's a good experience.
I had like the same kind of theme experience where you sort of go through hours and hours of discomfort to get rewarded, and mine was again a trekking experience in New Zealand, and it was called the Tongariro Crossing. So in New Zealand there's 2 islands, the North and South, and it's one of the best things you can do in the North Island, and it's actually where Mount Doom is. It's featured in Lord of the Rings. And Dan, who I've mentioned a couple of times, had just been to New Zealand. I met him in Australia, and he'd recommended it. He said it's one of the best things he's done on his trip. And he said, but you've got to go on a nice day, because he got to the town, booked a trip, got on the bus, and it was really bad weather, and he said, I'm gonna wait around for a day, then gamble and hope the weather's better tomorrow so I can enjoy it. And he said the next day was amazing. He said it's the best decision he's made.
Yeah.
He needs to do it on a good day. It was just absolutely epic. When I came to do it, I didn't really have as much time, and I booked on a trip, got onto the bus. There's a couple of boys, one lad I'd met in Auckland, one I'd met somewhere else, all planning on doing Mount Doom. Got to the start of the trek, and the coach driver said, look at those clouds over there, like they're moving really, really fast. That means it's really windy and really cold up there and raining. If you want a full refund, like, we'll happily give you that.
Really?
We don't yet. So the mate, like, they don't really care about profit or anything. They just didn't want anyone to go up and hurt themselves, because it's just so much more hassle. So you need to be, if you're going up there, you need to be really prepared and had all the equipment. Experienced hikers, under no circumstances go up Mount Doom, because there's a cloud there, and they won't be able to get a helicopter there if you hurt yourself. So the Canadian lad, to be fair, completely prepared, had all the bags, had his meals, all the waterproof clothing, the boots. Me and the other English lad, just like clowns, dressed in shorts, gym trainers, hoodies, had a bit of food, really underprepared. And rather than doing a sensible thing of just going home and trying again, we went for it. First hour was fine, nothing to report. Then after an hour, around that time, you're at Mount Doom. So we stood around, thought, should we go for it? So, yeah, let's do it. So we're climbing up Mount Doom. It must have been about a good 30 seconds before we entered a cloud, and we're walking up. It's not a path, because it's a volcano. It's sort of ash and rocks, and it's just loose terrain. Right. So you're taking 3 steps to make 1 step, because you just keep sliding down. It's just the wind's pelting us from the side. It's raining on us. Really cold. Obviously not got the right gear, and because it's cold, I've got icicles on my forehead. the Canadian lad's got icicles on his beard, and my calves are just burning because it's just the work they're doing. It's just aching. And after I've done about 10 minutes, I'm thinking, I've got another 50 of this. How can you do this? This Swiss guy jumped on with us, like, and set some boulder. Like I say boulder, it's about a rock the size of a football. And it sort of bounced. It wasn't close to us, it was like 10 metres. But the speed it went past us at, I thought, Jesus, if anything like that
it's dangerous, so dangerous.
Yeah. Can't believe I did it now, but anyway, going up, and after about 40 minutes, my calves were hurting so much, my body had sort of stopped feeling it. And we're getting to the top, sort of pulling each other up, like encouraging each other. We get to Mount Doom, we get walking to the top. It's like, we're nearly there. We get to the top of the mountain, and you're supposed to be able to see the east and the west coast of the North Island of New Zealand.
Oh wow, okay.
We could maybe see 3 or 4 metres either way at a push, but we did it. And then luckily, because it's a volcano, there's a hot air pocket, so put our hands over this pocket, loosened them up, started going down this mountain again.
A hot air pocket as in like a little bit of gas being released from the volcano or something?
Yeah, and there's heat, like really strong heat.
Oh, okay.
So our fingers had scrunched up by this point and were like claws, as Phil can see and no one else can see. So they loosened them up and moving again. So it wasn't much to see, just took a photo of, well, nothing, because you can't see anything. Headed back down, you think, oh, going down, that's the easy part, but because of the terrain, you've really got to keep your balance. So you're doing equally as much work, just in a different way. And it was so cloudy that we lost the Canadian boy and the Swiss guy. But don't worry, I've seen them since, so they're still alive. I met one of them in Wellington, so it's all good. Me and this English lad, Josh, we get to the bottom of the mountain and we're like high-fiving, hugging, like, yes, we did it, like 2 hours of hell, but easy street from this point onwards, it's going to be absolutely fine. So we're in good spirits for about 10 minutes. And then we come up to a sign that's telling us it's about another 16 kilometres till the end.
Oh, bloody hell.
The weather's not good. And then within another 5 minutes, we have to go up more hills. And we're already tired from it's already taken us out of this experience. We go up these hills and it's really hard work. And then we're just walking. Again, we're being swept by the wind. It's raining. We're cold. Oh, we're just really just downbeat about the whole thing and how far we had to go and the weather. Couldn't even hear each other, so you couldn't speak. Couldn't even see each other. Didn't even have the energy and the desire to talk. So we just walked for a couple hours, and it's just so depressing. Eventually, we met some people coming the other way. I thought, oh yeah, how long is it, guys? It's another a few hours, and we were just in denial. We were like, oh no, they're wrong. They're wrong. It's only going to be an hour, surely. Couldn't eat any of the food or drink because our hands were just scrunched up. Oh, it was in a really bad spot. But then we came to like a man-made path, so it was nice to know that we were going the right way. And it started descending down the mountain, and the weather sort of started to get a little bit better the lower we got. And we got to what was a halfway house, and Josh said, I need to go to the toilet. Goes to this toilet. He's in there for well over 10 minutes. I'm thinking he's obviously needs a massive poo here. Came out, and he's like, oh, sorry it took so long, mate. My hands were so cold, it took me over 5 minutes just to unzip my trousers. It was that cold. But by this point, we were out of the cloud, and we descended a bit more. And what was in front of us was, honestly, the best view that I've ever seen in my life. And when our hands unfroze, we took pictures, and the camera just didn't do it justice. It was that good. But the whole point of this huge story is that we had to go through such a bad experience and go through all the emotions, and then at the end of it we were rewarded with, like I say, the best view I've ever seen. And I've showed people the pictures and they're like, oh, is that it? But you don't understand. It was rolling hills off this mountain. It was green. There was a massive lake with a forest around the outside of it, and just all sorts of natural colours. And it was just incredible. And one thing that people say about the Tongariro Crossing is that you have to walk through these woods at the end, and people say, oh, take those woods seem like they go on forever. But because of this amazing view, we got our spirit back, and we were really chatty and having a great time at that point. So for me, the woods was just not that long at all.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's definitely worthwhile doing. I'm not sure I'd recommend doing it in those conditions.
Yeah, it sounds like you need to plan that a little bit more in advance. But
because of the way it worked out, though, like you just said about the mountains, it was an amazing experience. It's something that I'll never forget. Me and the lad Josh have got some bond that will never be broken now, just because of that.
You asked also about experiences, and while you've been telling that story, I've been trying to think of a few more.
You had plenty of time to do that. 7 minutes, right?
I certainly did. One of possibly the most amazing things about travelling is you never know what's going to happen. We gone to South America with the intention of going to see the World Cup, and I managed to get 4 tickets for the England games. I got really lucky there, but the price of accommodation and everything had rocketed because of the World Cup. And I'm not joking, there's no exaggeration when I say accommodation was 10 times higher during the World Cup period than normally is. So whereas you pay £5 for a night for a room, you're paying £50 a night. and on the backpacker's budget that just isn't doable. So what I decided to do was spend a week in Brazil, go to one of the England games, and
which one?
England Italy, where England lost 2-1. But I could have gone to all the games and we'd have played crap anyway and lost. So it's
great goal by Raheem Sterling.
The goal that wasn't a goal.
I was watching in Sydney now in, and jumped up. I was like, yeah, and then realised that it wasn't in.
Yeah.
Got a lot of stick for that.
I think from the angle I was at, it didn't look in, but everyone told me afterwards on TV it looked like it was in. So.
Yeah.
But that whole week in Manaus was one of the most random and best experiences I'll ever have. I met so many lovely, genuinely friendly people. I met some really nice women, and we went back to this one girl's house, and she invited us to a house party, and it was just her family and the next door neighbours. And they were just throwing this massive house party because it was the World Cup, and it was just, like they couldn't speak a word of English, and I couldn't speak a word of Portuguese, but it was just such a cool experience, and just the whole atmosphere of being in a World Cup was one of the best experiences of my life.
Yeah.
Which it's a shame I didn't get to go to all the other cities in Brazil, but I'll take that week away from me, and maybe doing it for a week makes it more special because I haven't got the 3 or 4 weeks to go, yeah, that was amazing. Just that 1 week was really good.
Yeah, going off the topic a little bit, but when it was the Olympics in the UK, there was that same good feeling.
Yes, it was, yeah.
That's what a major sporting event would do to a place, I guess.
Yeah. So weirdly in England, everyone was like, before the Olympics, they were like, I'm not sure about this, it's costing a lot of money. But it really did pick people's spirits up, and it really did make... I was in a bar and people were chatting about it weeks afterwards, how good it was.
Yeah. I saw my first gold post box the other week.
Did you?
Yeah, I've not seen... It was one in... I forget who it was, but it was in Leek Town Centre.
Leek? What were we doing in Leek?
Went to watch Crew play away at Chesterfield. Not a place I'd recommend doing a backpacking experience to, by the way.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not the best.
We'd lost, it was a rubbish game. Surprise. And then it was on the way back, and my dad's from Leek, so we just went for a drink there. I forget who the athlete was though, who's from there. Yeah,
I've seen the odd gold box around in London, but not elsewhere. So.
Yeah, so I went, that was my first one. I thought, who's that? Because I had a lot of time off then, so I watched a fair bit of it. Thought I recognised that name. Did not recognise the name. But there you go, from Brazil to Leek in a matter of minutes.
Yeah.
We've gone off topic. So we've talked about the best places and best experiences. One of the things that I know I got out of travelling was I had a few difficult times, and I managed to sort of get through those, and for me it carried to the overall experiences. Is there any experiences like that you had that were difficult and you learned anything from?
I try not to put myself in difficult situations or have difficult experiences because, well, why would you want that? But sometimes things happen to you that are out of your control, or experiences you can learn from. The one experience I had, I was in a bad place for about an hour or two, but you get over it pretty quickly. You've got no choice, you have to get over it. You can't be wallowing in self-pity or whatever. So when we're in Vietnam they've got some strict policy where at midnight all the bars close down and the police come around to all the bars.
That was in Hanoi, right?
I don't remember. It was in the north.
And I think it's because they got a new police commissioner at the time, or a new... someone who just come to have some sort of power had made them things shut down. Whether that's still the case now, I'm unsure. But
well, it was within one city within Vietnam.
Yeah, I was there at a similar time.
Yeah.
But carry on.
So everywhere shuts down at midnight. So at midnight we got kicked out of this bar, and someone that we knew said they knew someone who was having like an illegal bar opening, and they could get us there. So we jumped in the back of a tuk-tuk and we went to this random place in the middle of, I have no idea where. It was outside the city. It didn't really feel it was that far, but at this point you're already a little bit drunk anyway and you don't really care. So I've gone there and I got talking to people, and the people I've travelled there with, my 4 good friends I was travelling with, had all said, right, we're going home now, and I was like, oh, I'll stay, I'm having a good time, I'm going to stay. So I had a few more drinks, and 3 o'clock comes before you know it, and everyone's gone that you know, and you're sort of left on your own. You're like, oh well, I suppose I better get back to where I'm staying, back to the hostel. But so I left this bar, and I had no bloody clue where I was, not a clue in the world. I couldn't explain it to anyone, I couldn't speak the language. So the only thing I could do was I got a picture that I'd taken on my phone earlier of this big lake. So I sort of tried to start walking back, but I didn't really know which direction I was walking. And I came across a taxi or a tuk-tuk, I can't remember, but I showed them the picture of the lake, and they took me to that lake. And I knew my hostel was maybe a 5-10 minute walk from the lake. So I was like, as long as I can get back to somewhere where I know, I can walk the rest of the way. So I paid the taxi and then started to walk. And at 3 in the morning, there's not many people around, and I didn't really know where I was going. Anyway, this motorbike sort of comes past, and I didn't really give much thought about it. So what happened was, as I walked past, the motorbike stopped, and then a guy and a girl, I think the guy was driving the motorbike and the girl was on the back, they both jumped off, came and approached me, and one of them stole my phone and the other one stole my wallet. Now, luckily, I sort of realised what was happening, managed to punch the guy who'd stolen my wallet, got my wallet back and ran. But I didn't realise that the other one had got my phone, because one had come from the back and one had come from the front. So I ran round the corner, stopped, thought I got away with this, looked and my bloody iPhone had gone, so I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
So you learn from your mistakes. A mistake is there. Don't be drunk in a city that you don't know on your own in the middle of the night. But yeah, I mean, we went to the police the next day. Nothing ever happened, as it wouldn't in Vietnam, because they're all bloody corrupt over there and they want you to pay your loads, and it doesn't work out. But I lost an iPhone, but I gained a good story. So you got to put a good spin on it.
There you go. Good attitude. It's interesting what you said about taking a mobile phone with you. For me, when I was out in those places, I'm fully aware that those sorts of things are about, those dangers. So what I used to do is I'd take a wallet with me, but I'd take all of like 10 quid worth of whatever currency, and then all my cards, my phone, everything would be left. There's a lot of people who will try and rip you off in those dangers, so if that ever happened to me, the most I've lost is probably it's going to be less than that after you've had a couple of drinks. And that is more than enough money than you need in those places, really. Yeah,
drinks are like £1 each or something.
So if that, sometimes.
But in that particular instance, I agree with you. Normally I wouldn't have had my phone with me.
Yeah.
The reason I actually did, if memory serves me, was because I was trying to meet up with you that night. And I was trying to chat on Facebook to see where you were. Yeah, so I'm blaming Rich on this one.
Yeah.
But in the other sense, it was actually a good thing that I had my phone. Yeah. Because without it, there was no way I'd have got back to the city.
Yeah. So that was why I brought it up. Because it's interesting. You had obviously a big benefit, and then end up losing it. Yeah. Obviously, there's things to be learned from that. But if you are going out in these places, just be aware. Like I said, I was able to have good times, and you don't need your cards and and your phones on most occasions, really, because £10 or whatever in these places is just enough money.
And like sometimes I would come up short on money occasionally. I'd take like you said, a tenner with me.
Yeah.
But then I'd be like, oh, I could do with another £2. But usually you're in groups, you meet people in hostels and whatever, and someone else has got money, and everyone's really, or generally really easy, and they go, can I borrow a few quid, and I'll lend you a few quid, and you're paying back afterwards. So.
Or even if you took 20, it's again, it's you don't want to lose the money, but it's not the end of the world if you do lose it. I actually did get, mugged myself. Well, someone took some money out of my wallet, and it was 3,000 real.
How much is that?
Like 75 US cents or something like that. Well, you need it more. If you're going to do that, you obviously clearly need it more than me. But that was the advantage of not taking too much money out of me, I guess.
Yeah.
Have you got any advice for people who are maybe thinking about doing a whole travelling experience?
That's a tough one, really. I suppose before I went to Asia, I was certainly after as much advice as I could get because I didn't know what to expect. And up until that point, I'd always been very much a case of I'd like to plan things, have things organised, know where I'm going, know what I'm doing in those places. Well, in Asia, it was very much go with the flow. So we sort of just turned up at, well, Singapore first, but once you get into the main bit in Thailand, we turned up at Koh Phi Phi. And we met a group of people, I can't remember how many, 10, 12, 15 of us. And we all got along really well, and we all said, well, we're heading this place next. And we said, yeah, we'll join you. So we met up with them again a week later in Koh Phangan. And then I carried on travelling with them, a couple of them to the next island, Koh something else, I can't remember.
Yeah.
So what I would say is don't be rigid, be free with your plans. Have an idea where you want to go, but if you get on well with someone and they say, I want to go this place next, maybe go with them.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I spoke with this about Dan. If you're in Australia, each day is a lot more expensive, so you often need a bit more of a plan with that, just because for each day you're sort of dilly-dallying around, like it's
costing you a lot in the hostels and whatever else. Yeah, that's true.
But in Asia it doesn't, and I met a lot of people who fell foul of that, what you just said then, and they'd have all these places booked up in Thailand and transport and hotels and stuff.
Yeah.
And then they'd get to a place and then they'd really enjoy it and have to leave. And they'd get to another place and they wouldn't enjoy it, but they're booked in for 3 days.
Yeah.
And they just said, it's having a good time and that, not having a bad time, but they just said they wish they'd known how easy it is to get to sort stuff out themselves. And I think that's one thing I say to people: if you fly into Asia, just book a flight into Bangkok and then just go.
I think that serves you elsewhere as well in the world. So, for example, we went to Machu Picchu in South America, and by we I mean me and another friend, and we looked at booking things in advance, and from the UK it's like £3,000, and we're like, well, that's far too much money. So we said, well, maybe we'll book something when we get into Peru, but still there were things £1,000 and this and the other. And in the end, we just turned up at the local town near to Machu Picchu, and we got 3 days worth of accommodation. We got food. We got the trek up to Machu Picchu, the pass to get in, a guided tour, and everything you can imagine, everything you want. About £75. And I'm thinking, well, that's dirt cheap, and I'm laughing at all these people who have ended up paying $3,000 for doing exactly the same thing as we did. And even in the World Cup, where we booked up accommodation beforehand, as I said, because accommodation was really expensive, what we didn't know is when we got there are these love hotels. Now, I'll try and explain this.
Sounds dodgy as anything.
Pretty much. They are rooms, if you like, where if you meet somebody, be it a nice girl, a nice boy, or even a hooker, you can take them there and you can rent out the room for an hour.
Transgender?
There are a lot of transgenders in Brazil. So you can rent out the room 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, or overnight. And I worked out that the cost of doing it overnight, fully aircon, beautiful room, was cheaper than the accommodation I paid with this shitty little room with a crappy little mattress in the boiling hot with no aircon and a crappy little shower. In the future, I think if I ever go to a World Cup or something again, I won't be booking up accommodation in advance. I'll just turn up and find what I can find, even if it's a love hotel.
There's some weird stuff will have gone down in those rooms.
Oh, certainly.
Continuing that theme, actually, that reminds me of another story, and I do promise that it's going to be a lot shorter than the last one. In New Zealand, and it was actually in the same place as where I did the Tongariro Crossing, and I met this German lad, really nice guy. Being a stereotypical German with the German efficiency, what he'd done is that he'd just booked this trip to New Zealand and booked everything from the transport, the flights, the boat, the trips he was doing, everything had all paid for, fully organised for the 3 weeks he was there. He probably knew what he was eating on every day, exactly where he was going to be. I think he was having a good time, but the reason he wanted to go to New Zealand was for the Tongariro Crossing, like I'd said. So obviously, like I said before, that the weather was terrible when I'd gone. It was probably about as bad as it can get before they just call it off, and they don't let people go, because obviously if they have to go and rescue someone, that just costs so much money, and you know, on top of that, it's not more money, it's someone's life, it's the more important thing. And so he'd booked to do this trip. He got there and had 3 days in, I think it was Taupo, that's right. So the first day, trip was called off. Second day, third day again. The day after was the day I went on it, but he'd booked his bus to go to the next place.
Yeah.
But along with the bus, he'd also booked his, like I said, he'd booked his accommodation and everything else along with it. So he really had to go.
Got no flexibility there.
Absolutely, yeah.
Do what he wanted.
So he started looking into these like really ridiculous options, like to get going, then doing the trip the next day, and then getting a bus right up to Auckland, which was a few hours, then getting a flight from Auckland to Wellington to try and catch up with the rest of his bookings. Then he was looking at trying to hire a car and seeing if he could drop that off in Wellington and stuff like that, and in the end it was just too much. So he ended up not being able to do the Tongariro Crossing, which is
the reason he went.
The flip side of that is that because of my experience in Asia, I tried to replicate and almost do the same sort of tactics in New Zealand. It didn't necessarily work, because there's a couple of places I nearly fell foul of accommodation where I'd turn up and got the last bed. I never was on the streets, but I turned up to one place and said, "Oh, have you just come from the tourist information?" And I said, "Oh yeah." I said, "Oh, you must be a Sir Guy then." And I thought I could either try and go along with this and pretend I'm Russian, but they're going to ask for my passport.
Yeah.
So I said, "Oh, no." I said, "Oh, right, because we've only got the one bed and it's gone to him." Luckily, they had some staff accommodation, and they said, "Yeah, you can stay in that. You don't usually let it out." So I got away with it then, and I nearly fell short in Queenstown, but freeballing it, so to speak, in New Zealand isn't quite as easy. So some places I think you'd need to research and see if it's feasible to freeball it or not, or maybe look at what places are going to be busy. Maybe look at events, actually, because the reason that Queenstown was sold out is because there was the New Zealand Open in golf or something like that, and a lad that we both met had told some story that in Cambodia it just so happened the king was going to be there on the night he was, so all accommodation. So yeah, I'm a big fan of going with the flow and without a plan.
Yeah, it can come across, but like you just said there, and we had a problem in Hong Kong. We went to Hong Kong and it was the Chinese New Year, so everything was fully booked. But again, we booked in advance, and then we found out we could have got somewhere else a bit cheaper. And again, when I was in Chile, there was a public holiday and everywhere was booked. But there's always something. You're never going to be on the street. The one time I actually booked into a hostel freehand, got there, and they went, "Oh, sorry, we've overbooked, we've double booked, there's been an error on the computer. We'll offer you a sofa, or we'll let you stay there for free and sleep, and we'll give you a beer as well." So I was like, "Go on then." So there's always going to be options. You're never going to be out on the street by any means.
One thing I was going to say is that in big hectic cities, say Bangkok or Ho Chi Minh or Hanoi, another one, because there's so many people about, so much chaos. When I went to those cities, I like to have a plan. So I think I always book something for the first couple of nights when I went there. Yeah. Just because you can get overwhelmed and they're trying to sell you all sorts and trying to get you and pay over the odds to go to all these different places, and taxi drivers are trying to get you to go to their mate's place. And so I think for the really chaotic places, I booked up because I didn't want to be messing about, especially with like a couple of bags, and you're a bit more susceptible to be mugged and stuff like that. You
need to be wary, especially in big cities, of being mugged. It's happened to a few people that we've met along the way. So, but you always hear these stories, and in reality, I don't think the danger's as risky as it's made out to be.
Yeah, one of my friends was telling me about stuff that happened in Thailand and about Bangkok, and I thought, might just miss Bangkok altogether. I'm glad I didn't, really. I've been so many times though, because you have to go through there to get anywhere. So the first time I went, I thought, I'm glad I didn't miss that. What an experience! It's really good. And I've been back about 4 times since then, and it does get a bit overwhelming.
See, I had the opposite experience. the first time I went, I was overwhelmed, completely overwhelmed. So it was the first time I'd really been hassled constantly. You cannot walk down the street without someone trying to sell you something. It is just ridiculous. You can't walk 2 meters without someone approaching you. And I was told that was going to be the case. And so I had it in the back of my head, I'll just ignore them, but you can't do it. And I was only there for a few days the first time, and I was like, thank God for that. I never want to go back there, it's awful. But then you have to go back there because Bangkok's the hub, the central hub of the whole of Asia. To get anywhere else, you sort of end up back in Bangkok. And then the second time, I'd been to Vietnam by this point, and Ho Chi Minh or Saigon is even bloody worse.
Yeah.
So when I came back to Bangkok seemed quite tranquil in comparison to Ho Chi Minh, and like you, I went back 4, maybe even 5 times. I lost count. But the more and more I went there, the less and less hassle I seemed to get.
Yeah, more comfortable.
And more comfortable I was. And then by the end of it, I was like, oh, I'm glad I've come back to Bangkok now. I actually really like it now. So
yeah,
we sort of had the same experience, but in reverse.
I had a kind of reverse experience of a different place. It's something that I think you've said it before a lot about. You don't like to do the same thing again because it's a waste of an experience, and it's never quite the same when you go back.
Yeah.
I went to meet 2 good friends in Thailand for a couple of weeks. I thought they were flying from England, I was flying from Australia, and I thought, right, I don't want to spend a week in Bangkok. 3 days is about the limit.
Yeah.
I want to go somewhere, but I don't want to take them somewhere and it'd be rubbish. And I thought, I know, I'll go back to Phi Phi, which is where the first place we went to. I thought, yeah, it's an island, it's quite small, there's beaches, there's a good nightlife, there's a few things to do in a day, you can't go wrong with that. Now the first time I went to Phi Phi, I thought, oh, it's really nice, and what a lovely place. There's there's no roads in Phi Phi, how cool. And
yeah, there's no cars, no nothing.
Yeah, I thought, this is awesome. And then, and that was when we met, like I say, a good group of friends that we still all speak to now, and I've hung around in different places with. So I thought, we'll take them there. So I met these guys, had a good time. Like, we booked a flight to Krabi to go to Phi Phi. Thought they're going to love it. They're going to think it's a really nice place. Going to be a good time. And I got there. I just looked at Phi Phi and I thought, what an absolute shithole. Yeah. It was just so different. And I had a good time, obviously, because I was with my friends. But I think must have been blinded by the whole sort of travelling experience with meeting the people and the time we had. And when I went back again, I just thought, it's not a good place.
I'm one for very much. You've seen one place, you've done it.
Yeah.
Why ruin that experience of it? Why go back? And things never generally live up to your memory of it.
Yeah.
The only exception to that, I would say, is if it was somewhere particularly special to you, somewhere where you've had such an amazing time the first time round that you think the second time round, if you're there again, it's going to be even better. And for me, the only place that's ever been has been Melbourne in Australia, which, as I mentioned before, I'm basically in love with. But other than that, there's nowhere else I'd go again a second time round. That being said, however, things change over time, and give it 5, 10, 15 years, going back then, you might get a different experience completely. And
especially
I know
with your memory.
With my memory, yeah. And as with Koh Phi Phi, it was devastated by the tsunami back in 2006. So we went in 2012.
Yeah.
So they recovered from that tsunami. But if you'd have gone before, I'm sure it would have been a very different place completely.
Yeah.
So maybe some places are worth visiting twice, but it's not to my taste. But who knows?
That's a good bit of advice, and I think we'll call that a day.
Okay.
From this point onwards, have you got anything you want to promote, Instagram or
yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Taffers. I've got a Tumblr page. I think it's taffers21 at tumblr.com or something like that. You can find it from my Twitter anyway. And I've got an Instagram, Taffers18. So have a look and look me up. And any questions, please do tweet me.
Okay. Thanks for doing this, mate.
No problem at all.